That's the brand I use. This is the type of oiler I use. I like the ones with the metal where I can bend them, because if they're straight and you got to go straight in and it's only half full, pretty much how this is, no oil is going to go in. So if you can tip it so it goes straight in, oil will flow. The Tri-Flow sewing machine oil is what I use, and it does have a little tip on it. So if you don't have one of these, you can use this, but I also recommend taking a piece of like paper towel and practicing, seeing how much it takes to get a drop of oil up, and check it periodically, because sometimes when you put it down into something, the tip can get clogged with dirt. So check it every so often to make sure that it's not clogged.
Right there.
Is one of them right here.
Okay.
And then the other important one is right here. And the upper main shaft actually drives the whole machine.
Okay.
So that one is like a crank in an engine. Okay, but ignore these two for now.
Okay.
Ignore this one up here. That one I'll show you why.
Okay.
Because it's a miracle shot if you use that hole. There is a hole on the front here that a lot of people miss. Some machines have one in the back as well. Some machines have two in the back. Some machines I'll show you later, but here I can show you right now. Some machines, to oil that shaft that goes from the top to the bottom, has an oil hole. This one does not, but it is on, without being able to see it, but on this shaft right here, there would be an oil hole somewhere right in here to support the lubrication of the shaft that goes from here all the way down. This one does not have it.
Okay.
No, it's actually down here.
Oh, it would be here, but this one doesn't have it.
Yeah, this one does not have it.
Okay.
It depends on what year you got it. And now going back to why you don't use those two holes is because the machine has to be the very top of the stroke or top dead center. And you're supposed to drop oil through there and magically get it into this little volcano looking thing here.
Right.
Right in the top of that. You're supposed to be able to hit that spot right up at the top there by dropping it through and onto the gears as well. The gears, it's better to just look at them and lubricate them from this side.
Okay.
There's also another spot or here by the block, top and bottom. The pickle fork up above here, that's a cam that the pickle fork is running in. And then on top of that volcano, on top of this, what I would call a connecting rod,
Okay.
there's a volcano-looking thing with an oil wick in there. It's also not a bad idea to, honestly, to get a little squirt of oil right here. Sorry. Little squirt of oil here, because that's where the shaft is. And the new oil hole would be right here, and it would lubricate the whole shaft. Gravity would just pull it down, but it's a good idea to have it on there too. Okay. Rotate it around as you do it. That way it'll work in the oil instead of it just running out someplace where it's not really supposed to go.
Okay.
First. That I told you to forget about. Don't oil there. because that oil is supposed to come down and magically fall into this little oil hole right here. That's an impossible shot I don't think Michael Jordan can make on a bad day. On a good day, of course. But there's another oil hole here. It is also good to get, here, let me just put a drop of oil. There we go. And another one there. Okay. And here, there's no oil hole, but it's good to give a little bit of a shot of oil on the front and the back side of that, and then roll it around.
Okay.
Okay. Then there's another one. There is an oil hole on this side. Give that just a little bit of oil. And also on this shaft, because this takes quite a bit of work. And then you'll notice that this is tapered. It's good to have plenty of oil right here because that's the only bushing that the needle bar actually has to keep it aligned and in the right spot. It's also a good idea to just every once in a while, not every time you oil, but lubricate foot bar.
Okay.
Okay. The rest of it is good. If you want to be super diligent, notice that this spot, this thing here, it's got a counterweight. A shot of oil back there isn't a bad idea every so often either. And just keep rolling it around as you're doing it, because that'll help. Spread the oil.
Okay.
Let me put that back on. You getting all this, Sally? Okay. There's one more spot that doesn't need regular oiling, and it's here for the bobbin winder. I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm going to wipe the excess off because you don't want too much in there, because if there's too much in there, it'll sling out here or here. It'll get on your thread when you're winding it, and it just makes a mess. So I'm going to actually just kind of wick that out. Well, I know that there's plenty in there. Just wicking out the excess.
Okay.
Okay. Then underneath the machine, there's plenty to do as far as oiling goes. You always look for where metal rubs on metal, and these shafts are basically kind of hollow inside, and there's a pin that comes through the end that they pivot on. So you need to oil that. Then each end. And there's another here and down here. Just get a little bit of oil on them. The feed dogs have the same type of setup, and there's just a little bit of oil on those. And then there's this. You can see where metal would be rubbing on metal. Here as well. Here as well. And then finally here. Oops. Some of them do have an oil port on these black parts, but this machine does not.
Would that be the newer ones?
Honestly, yeah, probably, because this one was made before 1950.
Yeah.
That much I can tell you. Oh, yeah. 1949. Okay, and then another spot is right here. Right in there where it's probably shiny with foil, because that is metal on metal. I've greased the gears, so you don't really have to worry about those for the moment. This is your feed dog drop. It's not a bad idea to just make sure that there's a little drop of oil on here because you just don't want it to seize up. But when you loosen that up, it'll expose this bearing. You want to get some oil on each side of that bearing. That's actually pretty important.
So we get into this side too. Was I do that? You just go in that way.
It's pretty important because these bearings don't get maintained a lot, and they do a bit of work, and they often get seized up. Okay. I don't remember if this one was seized or not, but it's a common thing. 15s have the same issue with the bearings underneath.
Now, what's similar to these as far as maintenance goes, what you're showing me? And even is this all special to the 201, or does this go to the 99s, the 15s?
Generally, this is very specific to the 201 or the 1200, which is the same machine, but with an e-lift. But they all have, this rocker shaft here and here. That's common among them. The differences are more in the hook drive and that, because this is shaft and they're just oscillating, and this is full rotary. So that's kind of a big difference between the two. Okay, now I believe I've gotten everything down here. There is another spot that often gets overlooked, and that is this hole right here. Good drop of oil in there.
Right in here? Center?
Right in the center of that screw.
Do you want to pretend you're putting another? Yeah.
Yep. Right in here.
Okay.
Now, as I say that, I'll put this back in. And just check to make sure that. Okay, it does not. And then see how the hook comes around here and that moves and this is stationary? You want to get some oil on that. Not only in this little race right here, but on top and on the front, on the edge. Wanted to get that oil real quick. But then, of course, roll it around.
Now, do you have to be very delicate with this, or are these pretty?
No, you don't have to be delicate. I would watch the amount of oil you put in, because it can just not only become a mess, but it can also screw up your thread, your tension. A lot of different things can happen if oil gets on your thread as it's going through things. I've heard of stories where somebody oiled their upper tension discs because it wasn't working right, and that's just making a mess out of everything. Not only your discs, but your thread, and then you got dirty thread going into your material right off the bat. Well, I did get this one. I got that one. Those two I often forget to mention. But yeah, don't use this one up here. Don't use these two. Go inside. You can use that one, but the rest is pretty straightforward.
Okay, so you don't use those two up top, and you don't use
this one. That.
Right.
One back there.
That's a no-no.
Yeah. And if you wanted to, you could always just put one drop of oil or two in there. That's just to lubricate the shaft and the needle.
Okay, can I do that again really quickly?
Yep.
Because it wasn't.
Yep.
Okay, just put one in there. Okay.
That lubricates the needle bar, or the pressure foot bar, rather. And then work it in.
Good.
Okay. Any questions?
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, how often? How often do you do that?
It's a good idea to do them about 8 hours of continuous running. Not that you've been sewing in your room, cutting and doing all that for 8 hours. It's just 8 hours in continuous running. It's a good idea to lubricate the machine with oil. Now, the only other thing is that you may want to do eventually is replace the grease, or actually add grease. And the grease goes in. Just use.
Is this different from the oil?
Yes.
Okay.
And this just takes good old-fashioned Vaseline.
Okay.
And I've got a little syringe with just Vaseline in it. Now you'll see that there's fresh grease in there. And most of the time there's some grease on the cap. But then I take a syringe with Vaseline. And when you want to do this, I wouldn't do more than, let's see. I wouldn't do much more than that.
That's a lot. And just put it in there.
Yeah. And then all you have to do is just tighten it. I'm going to save myself a little trouble because that was a little drip on the side. Mm. What that'll do is as you're screwing that down, it's forcing the grease into the motor. But I would not over-grease the motor at all. That's whenever you start to hear the motor slow down type thing. It's not performing the way you want it to, or it's getting worn.
Right.
And every so often, if it's sounding funny, just feel the motor and feel if there's any hot spots on it. If there is hot spots, then perhaps a little bit of shot of grease is needed. But they rarely need it. Depends on how often you use your machine.